extensive experience in incorporating indigenous knowledge systems into modern day practices. Bikutu Wasiria, aka Anthony Kalume, wears many hats, amongst others being a lecturer in creative writing at the University of Pretoria. Mahmoud, Maalik, Saako. Our rich culture has evolved over time, both in usage and abuse. The fabric that holds us together like language is slowly being eroded. The rise of the usage of vernacular in contemporary African urban music has seen a surge of interest in the youth, embracing their culture and assuming a stance in maintaining and promoting it. We as curators are now obliged to use the tools readily available to revive indigenous knowledge systems that had previously been ignored and shunned. For the Eurocentric equivalent, here we are talking about music, songs, dances and instruments lying in our encyclopedic museums. These are artifacts mounted with limited content to justify the exotic origins and vibrant rituals that once arrayed them. Music is an art beyond words. Music conveys messages of feeling, ideas, and argument. Music related to decolonization movements and nation building through the 1950s to 80s is a reflection of how people use language, talent, and present-day technology to communicate. In addition, our natural heritage collections contain specimens of fauna and flora, some of which form the foundation of our rich heritage in food, herbal medicines, and the spiritual connections that sustain the well-being of our ancestors. If it was good enough for them for millennia, we can still retrieve these gems of knowledge and use them holistically. Traditional knowledge has proven very effective in conserving the biodiversity resources in the environment. Some of these indigenous knowledge forms have conservational values that transcend the stream of time and can be utilized in today's biodiversity conservation issues. The question now is, how do we incorporate modern technology to uplift indigenous knowledge systems in our heritage and museum spaces, in a language that will be appreciated and understood by masses, including the youth, policymakers, and the marginalized. This may also mean revisiting the spiritual connections with nature to fight the climate injustice affecting our planet today. And with these words, I'm handing over
when I say Simulani, I'll raise my wrist and you have to say hi. Now, hi means life. Hi means yes. Uhai in Swahili means living. So when you say hi, which is your breath, hi, you're giving face to the Most High. Simulani. Hi. Simulani. Hi. Ngoma Zulu. Komazatili, Simulani. Hi. Simulani. Hi. I'll start this session. Can I just use the book where you're going to Anya said, I am a lecturer at the University of Pretoria in Sussex. I live in Sussex, but I come from Kenya. But I also work for the Obsidian Collections, which is in Chicago, in America, as an image curator. I have a charitable organization called Diversity Lewis, which works with police, schools, and our motto is to create awareness on all things, that are the community, and they were sold as fetish things to Hollywood stars during the 80s. So it's very hard to say, but my community has given me permission to go all over the world to check which museums have begun, which private heritage site has Ugandans. And sad enough, when I go online, I still find Sotheby's, Christie's, all the big auction houses still selling them up to today. So it's such a, you can't say defeatist, but it is such a hard thing to do. So yeah, this is what I do as part of my portfolio. Go to the next slide. Now, I'll talk about music and how we can use it as a way to bring in peace, revolution, and knowledge. Katilili Wameza, that image you see there was actually Google. Google has all these, anniversaries. Katilili was one of the people who were actually praised by Google and given its own, she was born in the 1860s, so we don't know when, but 1860s, and she died in 1924. Mekatilili Wamenza is known as the first woman in Africa to fight against the British Empire. She's recognized in a way that nobody knows. Does anybody know Mekatilili Wamenza? Nobody knows. So that's the problem we have. We as curators, we work with the past to bring in the present and to move on to the future. So Mekatilili Wamenza used to live in the village in the middle of the Kilifi district. So I come from the east coast of Africa, of Kenya. We call ourselves the Miji Kenya, which is the 9 tribes. And what happened is that Mekatilili brother was caught by slave traders. She never saw him again. So she was very angry. She got very agitated and said, I've got to do something about this. So she followed a prophecy of another seer back in the 5th century. She prophesied that people will come with hair like sisal, skin like the stars. They'll come and move in the air with iron bands, Back then in the 5th century, Mekatilili followed that legacy of Mepoho. These things are there. If you Google it, you find them. AI can give you Mepoho, Mekatilili. They're all there. People have written about them. And she started going around the villages, telling everybody, these people are coming. And when they come, they're here now. The colonialists are here. 1924, they were already in Africa. Now, she used the music called Kifudu. Kifudu is a music played by women who are undergone menopause. So 60, 50, 40, And it's a kind of dance that is only danced during a funeral. So she used to do that in a way that people used to ask, who's died? Who's died? She said, come and see. She used to say, come and see. And then she used to say and tell them about her dreams, her inspiration, and how she can get people together. If you play that track, it's quite a short one. Just keep on the album. Now, we have 7 kaya forests, which are tropical forests within the East African coast. Now, these ones as I say, natural cathedrals. They are used as places of worship, spiritual, divination, spiritual healing. And what happened is that nobody was allowed to cut the tree there. So you could go like 10 miles within a certain area, just forested area, The good thing is, this forested area also had herbal medicines. So they were like, going to the pharmacist, here, you go there, get your ticket, line up, get your medicine. In the old days, you go to the elder, I got a stomachache, he said, you see that tree called, go and pick it up, bring it here, I'll show you how to. So they taught you how to look after yourself. I got an itch here, go and pick that tree, So we had a pharmacist within the elder, and these are the knowledge we're losing. We're losing this knowledge. So when I'm trying to connect is that we have knowledge that we've ignored. The forest was conserved, climate change was preserved. The breathing of the earth relies on the forest. They are the lungs of our earth. We are cutting them down. I'd like us to look back and see why did it work during that time when they had like 10 miles of uncut forest, tropical forest, that now we take for granted, and we cut charcoal, we use some of the wood, we don't care. We just deforest, especially in places like Brazil, we're losing all this. Indigenous knowledge system used to preserve these places. Spiritually, healing, sanctuary. When the slave traders came during raids, people used to go into the forest. We have a percentage of people who, of course, were taken as slaves. But within that Kaya area, we were very successful in evading the slave traders because of this forest. So you can see how holistic it was. You preserve the forest, you get the medicine. You preserve the forest, you get the spiritualness. Preserve the forest, and it's a sanctuary. Go to the next slide. I'll talk about the Kenya Land Freedom Army, which was called Mammal. Does anybody know what the Mammal? Mammal? Yes. Kenya Freedom Army fought against the British colonialists in the 1950s. Most of these soldiers were recruited to fight in the Second World War in now Myanmar, used to call Burma. They are training the soldiers by the British to fight against the Southeast Asians. When they came back home, there was nothing for them. There was no work, there was anything. So what did they do? They went into the forest. Back again about the forest now, we're talking about the forest again. They preserved the forest. They made sure they had a place to hide. And here, I just wanted us to play a clip from, I don't know if it will go to YouTube straight, but yeah, that's it. I don't know if you read about it in the paper last season. In the old days, the Aborigines used to go around and have a corridor banked so that the fire, when it comes, if there's a big fire, it won't cross that corridor. They used to control, it's called the abatement project. I've given you the URL, you can check on it. These are the knowledge that we need to acknowledge, because eventually the Australian government acknowledged the fact that we have a problem here. But how about the Canadians? They didn't acknowledge it. They're having problems. So we as curators, we know what worked during the old days. There's so many examples, but I'll just pick that one as one. I don't know if anybody knows about Professor Madai. She's very famous. She's the first woman, black woman, to get a PhD from Africa. And she's the first woman to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And she started this movement called Green Belt. Simply have a belt against the desert of trees, grow trees along the belt, and have people looking after them till they grow. And up to now, the Green Belt movement still goes on. So I just had these two examples for you to think about: music and nature. I think the next slide is, that's me.